Time now, and the shocking tactics being used by people smuggling gangs to entice illegal migrants into Britain via the increasingly sinister Chinese social media app TikTok have been uncovered, with the latest live stream seeing traffickers declare we are the UK, French and Turkish governments as they broadcast live from a migrant camp in northern France. They are also posting degrading and sinister footage of young, drunk, scantily clad British girls as social media bait aimed at young North African men. That is according to a GB News investigation. So, Nigel, I appreciate the government is to blame here, but TikTok, this Chinese social media app, surely becoming part of the problem.
Very much so, Dan. I mean, it's been used openly. The Albanians were using it every day. You know, advertisements, come to London, showing the route, showing people in London, showing them with £10,000–20,000 in cash in their hands, basically saying, come to Britain, join the criminal drugs gangs, make loads of money. But now what we've seen today is just open mockery. You know, we are the government. Well, the irony is, of course, they're more powerful than the government when it comes to who can cross the English Channel or not. But your question is a really vexing and difficult one. The younger generation, TikTok now dominates their social media lives by, way above all the other platforms. Short of banning it, there's nothing we can do because, you see, even if you close these accounts down, and you can close down 100 accounts every day, but new ones simply spring up. I have to say, I do think some of the ways in which TikTok's been used, especially around the gender debate, have had a very strong political motive. One or two states in America talking about banning it, but frankly, it isn't going to happen. They are too big, they are too powerful, and the big vested interests in Britain and America are too close to communist China for business. So I'm afraid, it's a bit pessimistic, but I'm afraid we're simply going to have to live with this.
No, indeed we are, but I'm not going anywhere near TikTok. I have a big issue with it. But look, Nigel, the Home Office's former asylum boss, I couldn't believe this, Emma Haddad, seems to have shown her true colours after joining the pro-migrant charity Amnesty International, which has recently slammed the government's immigration policies as, quote, inhumane, racist and divisive. So is this proof that the civil service, Nigel, actually has no intentions of stopping the boats and will do whatever it takes to frustrate Suella Braverman?
Well, I've said this before and got in terrible trouble with certain newspapers, but I'll say it again. It proves there is a fifth column, literally a fifth column deep at the heart of the British establishment that will do whatever it can to frustrate the will of a government, albeit not a very good one, but a government that was elected with an 80-seat majority.
So is this the deep state, Nigel? Is this the British deep state?
It's the equivalent, yes, absolutely. But it is a fifth column. It's working against our democracy, against our national interest. And I'm sorry to say that, you know, she is a public example of this. All the reforms that Gladstone put in place all those years ago to depoliticise the civil service, to get rid of corruption in the civil service, and actually to give us an amazing civil service for much of that time, all of that since Tony Blair has gone, as they become increasingly politicised. And frankly, the only way forward is mass sackings and start again.
Both sides of the story, of course, here on GB News, Nigel, as you know. So Ms Haddad has said, as with any civil servant, my job was to serve the government of the day. All civil servants must abide by the Civil Service Code and uphold the civil service's core values of integrity, honesty, objectivity and impartiality. But, Nigel, moving on, the Mail on Sunday has exposed hushed-up Labour plans to hit motorists with a pay-per-mile system as failed London Mayor Sadiq Khan's war on motorists reaches egregious new heights. So a dedicated website called Project 2030 revealed a request for engineers to join Transport for London Now to lead the way in introducing new, more sophisticated type of road pricing. So, Nigel, it does feel like this is the future under a Labour government, isn't it?
Oh, it's coming. It's coming. Road pricing and with Chinese-style spy cameras measuring our speeds, and everywhere we go, all of this already being used, this technology, to back up ludicrous outside of school hour, 20-mile-an-hour limits in London, in big cities, and now, of course, coming to the whole of Wales. But here's the problem, Dan. This isn't some dastardly plan by Labour. All of this was put in train by Conservatives. ULEZ, 0 hour, starting in under 3 hours. Boris Johnson was the one who first proposed these ideas. Grant Shapps has been rubber stamping much of this stuff, and the Tories have been as taken with the Green agenda as the Labour Party. Now, we're now hearing a change of tone from the Conservatives, but do they really mean it? And is it perhaps too late? But yes, you're right. Road pricing is exactly where Labour want to take us. And it's, policy, our transport policy is designed by people who live in central London, don't own cars, and think we should all have a bicycling future, a Beijing future, all on bicycles and all constantly surveilled. They're out of touch with the country. And if the Conservatives were genuinely to get this right on behalf of nearly 37 million people who drive in Britain, it would be a huge, huge thing for them. But we have to believe them. Not that it's just being said for the mayoral election and the next general election. We have to believe there's been a fundamental change.
Well, we do. And of course, speaking of cyclists, Jeremy Vine thinks that actually cars should now be pullied over, Nigel, to allow cyclists to overtake. So that's where we're going. By the way, Sadiq Khan has said on this, this is nonsense. Let me be crystal clear. A pay-per-mile scheme is not on the table and not on the agenda. Nigel, as you say, just 2 hours and 15 minutes now until ULEZ is introduced. You have a very special programme, a very special Farage at Large tomorrow night at 7 p.m. What can you tell us about it?
I've lived for 60 years in when I grew up, it was Kent, but we got absorbed by Greater London. We are the furthest point from central London. The ULEZ cameras are literally going in just down the road, right next to my local pub. I have to say the one that was put up isn't there anymore, not that I can condone that sort of behaviour. And we're going to do a live show tomorrow night from my area, where I'm from. I have a massive audience, and you'll see people that own horse boxes. You'll see pensioners. You'll see ordinary folk. I mean, just one example. One guy said, this is my car. It's a great car. It's not compliant. Khan's offering me £2,000 scrappage. It's £20,000 to buy the equivalent of what I've got. And for the people with horse boxes, even farmers with tractors are going to find themselves hurt by this. Where I live is not a wealthy area. It's a rural area. It's not a wealthy area. We may be an extreme example. But what about all those people living in Kent and Surrey and Sussex and Essex and Hertfordshire and elsewhere? It's going to hurt them too. And I am appalled that this government has not either put in place legislation or used Article 143 of the Local Government Act. This could have been stopped. This could have been stopped. And they chose not to do it. So I think we're going to have a big crowd tomorrow. And in my 60 years of living in these villages, I've never seen such anger.